But I also get why people, the British and the government, the British government would not want people
would not want people to know. We all know that the King of England, King Charles III, just concluded an official royal tour to Kenya with his wife, Queen Camilla. Now, he took part in several activities, including laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown at Nairobi's Uhuru Gardens. He then went on to visit the Nairobi National Park and got to travel to Mombasa. King Charles also attended an event celebrating the life of the late Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai and visited Karura Forest, which Maathai helped save from developers through her years as an activist. Now, despite the king's acknowledgement of painful aspects of Britain's colonial past, several individuals and social justice activists registered anger over his royal visit. Now, a group that had planned to demonstrate at the foot of Mau Mau freedom fighters' Dedan Kimathi monument in the Central Business District had their protest banners confiscated and got dispersed by the police. Among the demands from protesters included that the king apologize for the British Empire's past crimes during the colonial era. There were also demands for repatriations and the closure of the permanent British military base, also known as Batuk, located in Nanyuki. Now, I want to take this opportunity again to welcome the panel to this conversation. And Mike, maybe I want to get started with you, or maybe I'm gonna actually let's start with Mike. There are those who say that the King's trip was a great success, with Kenya being the first Commonwealth country that he chose to visit as the sitting monarch. They insist that as a country, we should look towards the future in building a good relationship with our former colonial master. On the contrary, there are also those who feel that before hosting royal tours and fraternizing with former colonial masters, we must first settle historical injustices brought about by over 60 years of colonial rule that still continue to negatively impact our society to date. Now, Mike, to you, maybe talk to us about how you perceive this royal tour from where you're seated. Mike.
Now, what I'm going to do to start with, let me just play, pertaining to what your question is.
Yes.
Let me just play a clip.
Okay.
Just a clip. And if I can get this.
And who's on that clip?
This is King Charles.
King Charles III.
The third.
Okay. No longer Prince. King.
I knew him as a prince. Sasa mkiniletea hiyo king.
Wacha tusikie anachosema.
The wrongdoings of the past are a cause of the greatest sorrow and the deepest regret. There were abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans as they waged, as you said at the United Nations, a painful struggle for independence and sovereignty. And for that, there can be no excuse. In coming back to Kenya, it matters greatly to me that I should deepen my own understanding of these wrongs, and that I meet some of those whose lives and communities were so grievously affected. None of this can change the past, but by addressing our history with honesty and openness, we can perhaps demonstrate the strength of our friendship today. And in so doing, we can, I hope, continue to build an ever closer bond for the years ahead.
What?
He almost said Paul.
Almost doesn't count.
I'm just saying, just listening, he almost said Paul over there, but it sounded like somebody pinched him, then he woke up.
Of course, there's no way he's going to do that. And I was listening to this, the courtesy of a clip from.
Of course, he can't say that, because that opens them out to legal.
A lot.
Yes.
And
they are
also
not,
don't forget, because there are people who are waiting in the wings.
Correct.
Palestine being one of them. Because actually, and somebody posted this in another group, 100 years ago.
They are the architects.
The Balfour Declaration.
They are the architects
of
the hour
saying,
too. The hour. They are the architects.
Hour too.
Yeah.
So I think the what needs to happen is history is very important. And as bitter and as bad and as harsh and as Madhogadhanio as it was, it happened.
Correct.
You cannot hide that fact.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot whitewash it, no matter how you try to whatever. It's very simple. They came in, guys were bamboozled, guys were made to wear kitambulisho. Nikama, like they were career, they were put in they were corralled into cages.
Passbooks.
JKIA was built by career, by detainees. We know what happened. Wamomo, all those places that even the origin of some of those places, many people do not know. Acknowledging and apologizing would be the first step. Like if there were some clips that were also circulating in terms of like what happened to the bodies of certain people, certain freedom fighters,
Like the Dan
like the
Kimathi.
Dan Kimathi.
Nobody knows where he was buried.
There's a guy from I think either Kisii or Masai. They were demanding to know where the bodies were because they want to bury. Even if they bring the head, they were saying they want to bury rightfully and accordingly and according to their customs or whatever, so that the person can rest. Now, with those things not being addressed, there's still going to be tension. However, the farther this thing moves further along, at some point our kids will, if we don't teach our kids will not really know and they will not really understand. As much as even us, ourselves. Because you remember when we used to go to the movies, what were we being shown? Those Kenya reels.
Kenya reels, yeah.
The Kenya reels.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys are coming, these guys were bad. All we knew was that these guys were bad. They used to kill out the Muzungu, whatever. And, eventually they gave us freedom. But the context of the stories was never really, really given.
Yeah, and then you
Right?
see there was movies like Kitchen Toto, which depicted the Mau Mau, like very negatively.
Kabisa.
And we are seeing parallels of what's happening in Gaza, for example, today, and when we read back the history of what previously happened. So I got an interesting comment from someone that I was a desk mate with in high school, very smart guy. He was asking me, okay, I see you're very passionate about this Israeli-Palestinian issue, but don't you think, also the Palestinians are also culpable, for what has happened to them? Why can't they just, behave well and get into an agreement? So I asked him a simple question, because I believe he also has some Mau Mau ancestry. So I asked him a simple question. If you go back to the 50s, would you tell the same thing to the Mau Mau, who are labeled at the time? They were labeled as terrorists. They were labeled as criminals. All these labels that you're seeing, the West use on groups that are not complying with what they want. I also interestingly tell people that, do you know who was on the US terror list until 2008? Should I make it a trivia or should I just say it? There was someone, very, very revered, who was still
Nelson Mandela.
There you go. Nelson Mandela was on a US terror list until 2008 when it became an issue and they had to remove it. The ANC, African National Congress, it was a terrorist organization. So I tell people to be very, very careful, when you're bundled in and you're told that you have to label all these people.
But even Nani
terrorists.
was labeled as a terrorist. Yasser Arafat.
Absolutely, yeah.
And PLO.
And PLO.
In fact, PLO was the precursor for Hamas for the longest time. Because remember, until Yasser Arafat came in and became the president?
Yeah. Not to get out of topic, but Hamas was created
in 89,
with
87,
with some
80s.
assistance, with some funding from Israel. Funny
Yes,
enough,
yes.
to counter
undermine
PLO,
to undermine the PLO.
Arafat and PLO. So
And that is not us saying it. This is history.
The good thing about these things is that
It's there to there.
Like if maybe we've hurt your feelings by saying this, you can always go check to verify if what we are saying is correct, and feel free to come back and tell us, and you guys were wrong. But now back to our story in Kenya.
So when such things, and that is why I think again, it is important to just know and read history. How, like when Orange was declared president in 2016, how we dove.
You mean Donald Trump?
How we dove
Okay.
into reading about slavery, understanding the emancipation, understanding Jim Crow, understanding the Civil War, what it was about.
A forced history lesson.
Exactly. You're like, oh my God, understanding how the college career, they don't go with the popular vote, is electoral college, how they came about. How this, why you find like the South has got a small population, but have got so many electoral college votes. Understanding that. It is important to understand the very many people who don't know that JKIA itself was built by detainees of the Mau Mau. The guys who are detained, whether it's Mau Mau or whatever, during the emergency, those guys are the ones who are the ones who built JKIA. Until I read the book, The British Gulags in Kenya, I never really had a picture of what went on.
Yes. And it was very brutal.
It was very brutal. You just hear stories. Unasikia story, you watch Kenya newsreel. But even you've heard that even sometimes the people who went through the torture and everything, they never talk. If you ask,
it's very hard.
If you ask anyone who participated in,
they never want to
whether it's Nandi, whoever participated in the liberation, they never really talk and they never address. They never recount.
No.
The stories.
Yes.
But when you read the accounts, and this is from somebody who is not Kenyan, detailing what transpired, chronology, you understand that, okay, I understand why people would not want to talk about it, but I also get why people, the British and the government, the British government would not want people
would not want people to know.